So this sage is just like ignited, like blowing like crazy all in my car while I'm seeing this like shadow man in my back seat. No. She was like, oh, well, I just heard Brielle, 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 like really loud right next to my head. I was like, yeah, that wasn't me. I was just like, I just need to get home. I just need to get home. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm kind of going to wrap up the whole my personal ghost stories thing. Well, this is gonna be two parts because this is kind of a wild ride. This is all in this house that I'm in currently. However, it's so much that I don't want to do an hour-long video. Kind of to preface it, I've had two ghost series, I could say, in this house. We have what I call my OG ghost, which is just like a ghost that I think I've had for like a long time. And then we have the weird thing that I think followed me from Carrie's house. So let's just get into it. So kind of the first thing that happened in this house, the first major thing that I can remember was it was just me and Bailey's mom home. Everyone else was out of the house that night. And I was down in the basement. I do my own acrylic, so I was just doing my nails, watching YouTube, minding my business, and she was upstairs just doing her own thing. She comes down like 45 minutes after Bailey had left and is like, Haley, like, have you been coming upstairs? Why are you leaving the door open? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, I've closed this door 3 times. Like, why are you leaving it open? If you know anything about acrylic nails, it is the most aggressive, like, chemical stench. It just like fills the whole house. So I tried to keep the door closed. She was like, why are you leaving it open? I was like, I haven't moved from this spot in 45 minutes, so I don't know what you're talking about. And then she proceeds to get freaked out, obviously, because why is this door open 3 times then? She decides that she wants to check for a burglar in the house because she thinks maybe someone's in the house then. And so we were doing kind of like a checklist system where, like, when we were done checking a room, we would turn the light off just to say like no one was in this room. Kind of like clearing the room like the FBI. And basically concluded there was no burglar, so why was this door being open? And so she kind of made a joke like, okay, like you probably brought your ghost with you. And then we were like, haha, whatever. And I went downstairs and sure enough, the living room light was on, which we didn't leave it on. We had cleared the whole room, so there was no reason for that to be on. It was really weird. So that was kind of the first thing. It wasn't like scary or anything, and most of the things that happened with this ghost weren't scary. It was just like, whoa, that's weird. And then shortly after, his mother started to see this little girl in our backyard, in this same spot, right behind a tree, like peeking out at night, like looking at her and then going back, and then like she would be gone. And there's no little girls that live nearby, like no one would have gotten into the backyard. She would have seen if they had left, like just like there would be a little girl that peeked out, peeked back, and was gone. It was super weird, but like, again, not scary or threatening. So at this time, Bailey's gaming PC was down in the basement. Him and Brielle were downstairs playing like Fortnite or something all night. They like to stay up real late. And so Bailey finally went upstairs to go to bed, and then Brielle, since he left, also went upstairs. And she stays up later than him. So she was still up like watching TV, stuff like that, doing schoolwork. And then she said like a ridiculously long time afterwards, like 3 or 4 hours later, she was startled by this like music turning on to like full volume and like bumping through the basement. And she was like, okay, that's weird. I know he turned his computer off and I don't know why any music would just like suddenly turn on. So she was like, okay, whatever. Let me just go turn off the computer, see what's going on. So she walks downstairs, and not only does it look like his chair had been like untucked from the desk and moved, and like the keyboard was moved and the mouse was moved. It looked like someone had like sat there, but also the computer was dark. So she was like, that's weird. So like if someone was actually touching this, like why would it be dark? So whatever, she turns it on to try to close out whatever tabs might have been left open, and there's nothing open. There's nothing to explain this weird noise. And so she doesn't find the source of the music, but she just shuts off the computer and is like, okay, weird, creepy, I'm gonna go upstairs. that wasn't the only thing that took place in the basement. Brielle and Bailey were down there on another occasion, and like wood planks and like random stuff set up in the basement or just sitting there just started falling and like moving for absolutely no reason. And stuff doesn't move down there usually, so it was really weird that stuff like just kind of started falling all at once and then like didn't really happen again. And then for me, I remember I wanted to set up a beauty room. And so for my like little vanity, I wanted like a really cool, like unique mirror. And I was down in the basement with Bailey and I saw this like old mirror that they had down there. And I was like, oh my God, this would be perfect. I was like, Bailey, I think I'm gonna take this one for like my beauty setup that I was talking about. And he was like, okay. And then we walk past it and go to sit down. And as we pass it, and mind you, we're like walking like 2-3 feet away from this thing, it just suddenly, it's an oval, so it just suddenly just rolled. And I was like, okay, that's really coincidental, weird, I don't know. So it was just like little things like that that like got your attention and made you like kind of step back for a second, but nothing too scary, nothing too extreme. And then I told Bailey's mom about this and I was like, okay, I think you're right. I think I do have a ghost that followed me here, and it's not like scary or anything. It just kind of seems like it wants my attention. Like, what do I do? And she said, well, if you're scared, you can like tell it to leave. And I'll go into that in a minute. And she was like, if you're not scared, then you can just tell it like, hey, when you do these things, it scares me, please don't do that. There was another instance where I was down in the basement and I just decided to like clean up. It just kind of needed like swept and cleaned up. So I had some extra time. I was like, whatever. I don't usually go into the basement at night just because like a lot of the weird stuff that was happening was in the basement. But I was like, okay, whatever. Like, it's not that big of a deal. I'll just go clean up real quick and then go upstairs. So I went downstairs, all was good. I was feeling good. I wasn't feeling scared or anything, which was really awesome. So I'm just sweeping, cleaning up, no biggie. And then while I'm sweeping, the light that is like close to like the stairwell entrance just like starts flickering. And I hate when lights flicker because it's just like, it just gets you so on edge, you know, because it's like, things are already happening in the basement. I'm scared of the dark. I'm also scared of being trapped. So if the lights flicker and turn off, then I'm trapped in the dark in the basement. Absolutely not. My worst freaking nightmare. So the light starts flickering, but I still need to clean up. So I was like, okay, guess I'm gonna talk to a ghost here. And so I was like, hey, like, please stop. Like, you're scaring me. Can you not mess with the lights? And I thought I sounded insane. I was like, okay, obviously it's just the light flickering. That's not gonna do anything. And I kid you not, the light stopped flickering when I said, it's scaring me, please stop. So I don't know. I kind of felt like me and this girl had a little connection. I say this girl, I have no proof that it's a girl. I just felt like it was a girl. So do what you will with that. But I don't know, she seemed kind of chill. She wasn't trying to scare me. I didn't really have an issue with her. And I had never like seen her or anything like that. So like it didn't really freak me out too much. And then it started to get like a little more frequent and then a little more dramatic. And then as it started to get a little bit more extreme, I kind of reached like my wit's end with it. And I felt bad because it like, I wasn't the only one seeing things. Like Bailey started feeling creeped out in the basement too. Bailey's mom was like seeing that little girl, and I just felt bad that everyone was getting so creeped out. And then one day while everyone's gone and Bailey's in the basement, but everyone else is gone, I'm just alone in my room. And I felt kind of creeped out, but I didn't really have a reason for it. So I just like shrugged it off. And then Bailey's mom comes home and she's walking up the stairs. She's like, Haley, and she's like calling my name for no reason. And she doesn't usually do this. So she's just calling my name. She's like, Haley, what are you doing? Like, where are you going? And I was like, what is she talking about? So I left my room. I was like, hey, like, what's up? You're back. She was like, yeah, you know I'm back. Like, I just saw you. And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, yeah, you're hiding from me. Like, she was like, why are you running from me? I was like, what do you, I don't know what you're talking about. And she was like, I just saw you like run into your room as I came up the stairs. And I was like, wasn't me, but nice, good to know, cool. So that really freaked me out because like something running to my room, like seeing something running to my, absolutely not. My room is my safe place, my bed, my makeup, no. So whatever, I'm trying to get over it, trying to like just shrug it off. Like I really don't want to have to do anything about this ghost. Like she's kind of chill, I don't mind her. And then one night, this was my final straw. So yeah, I'm all alone in the house. Bailey just left to basketball. And when he left our door like cracked open to our room. And I absolutely loathe doors being left open for this exact reason, because it freaks me out. But it's important to know our AC does not affect any doors or anything. We didn't have any windows open, and when we do, like, I don't typically have an issue with my door either. But he left the door cracked, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna face my fears. I'm just gonna leave it. I don't feel like getting out of bed. I'm cozy. He can close it when he comes back. And so I'm just sitting there, and like 10-15 minutes later, I start hearing it creak, and it hadn't moved at all, but it just starts slowly creaking. So eventually I look up, and I have a mirror hanging on my door. And I look up, and as the door is creaking, it looks like the angle of the mirror is getting closer and closer to seeing myself. And it's moving so slowly. It was just so eerie. I was like, yikes. So I'm just waiting for it to stop. And eventually it stops right when I can see myself dead center in the middle of the mirror. I was like, ooh, creepy. No, nope, I'm good. So I think I just like moved like just a few inches out of like the view of the mirror. And I was like, cool, just ignore it. You can't even see yourself. What's the big deal? And what, I swear to God, when I do that, the door starts shifting back the opposite way until I can see myself in the mirror again, after I just moved specifically so that I wouldn't see myself. I was like, okay, that's creepy. Absolutely not. I'm so sick of this. So I, at that point, kind of reached my wit's end with the ghost. And that's when I decided to tell her, thank you, buddy, but goodbye. Sorry about the lighting change. As usual, the sun went down as I was filming, but we'll just move forward. Bailey's mom told me that if you want to help a ghost move forward and away from you, kind of, you have to do this thing where you like light a candle, say a prayer, tell it to move on to the light of God, and just be like really, really respectful to it. So I was like, okay. I wasn't initially comfy with the idea of like talking to a ghost and like acknowledging like, hey, you're right here, I want you to not be. So I kind of pondered it for a while, and I was like, okay, you know what, I need to just do it. So one day when everyone is gone again, I did it. I lit a candle for her. I said a prayer. I said, thank you for being near me, but I need you to move to the light of God. Just basically tried telling her like, you gotta go, sis, sorry. And so I did that, and I felt like everything was kind of good, and I went to get ready for bed. And as I like sat in bed and I went to lay down, I heard right in my ear, I heard like, bye. And I was like, ooh, what? I thought you were gone. Why are you talking to me? And so I went to bed super creeped out. And then the next morning I'm like getting ready for work, and I didn't tell anyone that I told the ghost like to go away, because like I wanted to see if it had worked first. And as I'm like making my breakfast, Brielle's just like sitting at her desk doing schoolwork, and she turns around, she's like, what? I'm like, what do you need? And she's like, what do you need? And I said, what's up? She said, why did you say my name? I was like, I didn't. She's like, are you sure? I heard it. I was like, no. She's like, oh, well, I just heard Brielle, 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 like really loud right next to my head. I was like, yeah, that wasn't me. So then I told her what happened and how I had just heard what I think was bye. And then she just heard that, and I was like, so like, did I piss her off or did she leave? Like, I can't tell. And so fortunately after that was kind of like the last we heard from her for like a few weeks. So I think she was gone. I like to think I told her bye. She said bye to me. And then I don't know what she was saying to Brielle over there, but then she left. So no biggie. I'm finally living in the house, like not creeped out. Cause like when you have a ghost, you can just kind of like feel it. Like you're just on edge all the freaking time. So we're living like stress-free, and then I want to say like mid-July, it's just me, Brielle, and Bailey here because their parents are out of town. And I kind of noticed that like I had this black pair of underwear that were in my hamper, and I noticed like ended up on the floor. I was like, that's weird. I threw it back in. And then like a day afterwards, it's back on the floor, and I was like, that's weird. I just cleaned the room. This shouldn't be on the floor. And I put it back in. And like as I would add more clothes, it would still end up on the floor for like a few days in a row. And I was like, okay, it makes no sense for this to be moving. And it just kind of like, I didn't think anything of it. I was just like really confused. I was like, Bailey, did you grab like a jacket out of my clothes or something? And he said no, he hadn't touched it. And I know I wasn't touching it, so I don't know what was going on there. But I kind of just like shrugged it off until one night, me and Brielle are sitting on the couch and we're watching Ghost Hunters. So we had been kind of getting into like the spooky mood and like watching like ghost stuff, like things like that. And as we're watching it, we look up and there's this can that is sitting on top of the fireplace. It's a can of mango seltzer water. And I had noticed it like a day or two previously, every time I walked in, because that's a really weird place to leave something, because the ledge above the fireplace is like maybe 2 inches, like barely big enough to like hold the can. And like it can spill if you set it right there. Like we don't really have drinks over on this side of like the house. It was just like really weird. And so I had noticed it, but I didn't say anything. And then I don't remember if it was me or Brielle, but one of us mentioned like, why is that can there? And then the other one was like, oh, I've been seeing that and wondering the same thing. And so Brielle was like, I thought that I had already thrown this away. I was like, oh, that's weird. And she was like, yeah, whatever, I must have just forgotten. So she grabs it and then recycles it. And that's it. No big deal at all. But then we're back in the living room like a day, maybe 2 afterwards, and we're talking, and I look up and I'm like, oh my God, is that the same can? Like, I thought you recycled it. And then we just kind of like had a really what the hell moment, because like we both distinctly remember her throwing it in the recycling. So and we were like, okay, we're like, is someone continuously putting a can there? I don't know. And so she was like, no, like I thought I saw it yesterday and recycled it again. I'm like, that's weird, it's here 3 days in a row. So she grabs it and she recycles it again. And then I want to say like 2, maybe 3 days later, we see the can up there again, and we just completely lost it this time, because we were like, we don't even have mango bubbly anymore, so there's no way that someone's drinking them and leaving them up there. I've seen her recycle the can. There's no way we're like playing a joke on each other, because we're both genuinely freaked out. And then we asked Bailey, because he's the only one in the house right now, and we were like, are you leaving a can right there? And he was like, no, like that's such a weird place to leave a can. So we're all just like, what the hell? And Brielle at this point has recycled the can at least 3 times. And she distinctly remembers recycling it multiple times, when I'm there, when I'm not there, and it just keeps ending up back there. And so this is when I kind of remembered, like, I'm having the same like weird mind thing going on with my underwear, where like it's kind of making us feel crazy, because like we know we moved it, but it's there again. So it's like, did we move it? Like, how is it possible that it's there if we moved it? So we're both just really genuinely confused, and at this point we're kind of convinced like maybe something else is messing with us. And then it happened to me alone, where I got out of the shower a different night, and I was walking from the shower to the to my bedroom. And as I'm like walking to my door, right behind my ear, I hear like breathing, like just right behind me. And while all of this is going on, we have one dog that chills downstairs with us at all times. Little Arrow, she just likes to be around us. She's the cutest little thing. And she is super like quiet. And we had noticed that while all this like weird stuff is going on with us, every now and then like she'll wake us up in the middle of the night, or like in the middle of the day, just like scare the heck out of us, because she'll just start like really aggressively growling and barking. And when she sees like strangers, like she gets kind of scared and freaked out and like starts barking and growling. But she's never done it in the house, because there's no strangers in the house. We were looking at other neighbors, like is someone in our backyard, or their birds, like there was nothing causing this. And she had never done it before. So we were like, what are you seeing that we're not? And so while all of this is going on in our house, my sister, if you've seen the last video, has a bunch of stuff going on in her house as well. And it was like times where like I would have to drive over to her house, and like where like the back door was open one night. She didn't know if someone broke in or what happened. So she like called me to come check it out, and I went and checked it out, and nothing was moved. There's no one in the house, but the door was locked but open. Like weird stuff like that. Or she would like hear banging and like freak out and like text me. And so hers is progressively getting scarier and scarier. While ours is just like kind of staying pretty steady at like really like trickster type things. And then one night I get a FaceTime call from her. And when she FaceTimes me, she's freaking out because she said she heard the downstairs door open. In that last video I was talking about, we kind of talked about how there was like a shadow man that went from her room to into the basement. So she was really scared of whatever was in the basement. So the fact that the door to the basement opened really freaked her out. And I was like, you need to check, because if the door isn't open, like you're fine. She was like, I can't open the door because I hear walking. And I was like, oh my God, like I don't think anyone's broken into her house. I don't want to say it's a ghost, but I'm thinking it is. And she is just so terrified. She's like, please, please, please come pick me up. And so as she's like freaking out, she's hearing the walking. She's like seeing shadows passing her door. As I'm looking on her camera, her lights go, it like flickers in like this really, really weird pattern that I've never ever seen lights flicker in my life. I got chills immediately, and I was like, okay, got it. Like I'm on my way. And like when the lights flickered, she just immediately started bawling, because like that, mind you, she's had these lights in her room for like maybe a year. She's never had an issue with the lights. And now that all of this has subsided, she doesn't have an issue with the lights anymore. They don't flicker anymore. So they weren't going out. There's nothing wrong with the fuse. They were in the same plug at all times. Nothing bumped it. There's no reason these lights should have been flickering. And me and Brielle go together to go get her. And as I get out of my car, I hear this scream that comes from her house. And so I like run inside, bust open the door, and I get her out of her room, and I'm like, did you just scream? Like, is everything okay? She was like, I didn't scream. I was like, are you sure? She's like, yeah, I'm sure. Like, get me out of here. So she goes to the car, and I'm like, okay, she said the door opened. I need to know if the door did open. And so I go and check, and sure enough, the basement door did open. And I know that it wasn't left open because my dad is the one that lives in the basement, and the door strictly separates the upstairs from the basement, and he's allergic to cats. My sister has a cat that just kind of always hangs out in her room, and that door keeps the cat out of there so that he doesn't have any allergies. So finally, I get some of Bailey's mom's sage, and I head over there with Carrie and with Carrie's old friend. And the saging itself went super well. I felt like the energy in the house was like 10 times better. Carrie felt the same way. So I thought all was good at this point. And then we're just hanging out. And what I didn't realize until afterwards is that I saged myself and them before saging the house, but I didn't do it afterwards. So when I saged the house, I hung out for a few hours, and then I decided to leave for the night. And so I went to leave the house to go back to my house. And as I opened the door, I heard like this really, really weird noise. It almost sounded like someone was like walking in the driveway. Like it sounded like someone was moving around outside. And I was like, did you guys hear that? And they're like, no. And I was like, I heard something, like someone was walking in the driveway. And Carrie was like, that's really weird, because me and her were just like looking outside, and we actually just thought that we saw someone like open your door and sit in your car. And I knew that wasn't possible because I know that I locked my car. And I was like, why didn't you guys tell me? She was like, I don't know. I thought we were crazy. And so I go outside. There's no one in the driveway. I go to my car. The door is locked just like I left it. And so I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So I checked my car. No one's in the car. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'm safe to go. So I left. It's important to note, like, I made sure that the sage was completely out before I left. It was not smoking, no embers. It was completely fine and cool. And then I'm in the car, and I have it sitting in my cup holder. And as I start driving away, I thought I saw someone sitting in my back seat. So like not the seat right behind me, but the one behind the passenger seat. So I freaked out, turned around, no one's there. I turned on the light in my car just to double check, even though I just checked my car, and I double check, and of course, no one's there. So I'm like freaking out, and I like turn the light off, and as I'm driving, I look behind me, and again, I thought I saw like the shadow of like a man in my car. And so I'm like, oh shit. It looks exactly how Carrie described the man in her room that was in the basement. So as I'm seeing this man in the back of my car, I'm like saying the Lord's Prayer, you're not welcome here, like saying the Lord's Prayer over and over. And my sage that was sitting in my cup holder starts smoking. It reignites somehow. I've never seen this happen before. And everyone I've spoken to has never had their sage reignite, but it starts smoking. And I was having trouble in the house getting the sage to smoke. Like it was having trouble even staying lit. And in my car, it was smoking so much it starts to like fill the car. So this sage is just like ignited, like blowing like crazy all in my car while I'm seeing this like shadow man in my back seat. And I was just like, I just need to get home. I just need to get home. And what's unfortunate is this night was the night that they decided to pave the streets. So I had to park like a block away from my house. So what's important to note is while I was saging the house, I wanted to ask Brielle's like opinion on like my technique, like what I was doing. And she wasn't answering my calls. And I was like, why is she ignoring my calls? Like she never does that. And the whole car ride home, I could not get a hold of her until like when I left the car and was about to start walking home. And that's when she finally answered, and that's when she came and picked me up. And so I tell her what's going on with the car as we're driving home. And she was like, okay, first of all, why'd you get in my car? Second of all, you're not going home right now. So she turns us around and
you're making me sound like a dude.
Well, I don't blame you. So she drives me back to my car. She's like, we're just gonna sage your car and you real quick and then we'll go home. So as we drive back to my car, we pass it to make like a U-turn to park next to it. And as we pass it, I could have sworn that I saw something like sitting in the passenger seat at this point. And I was like, okay, I don't want to freak out Brielle. Like, I'm just going to ignore it. Like, maybe I'm freaking myself out. Which I didn't believe that. I know my car. I've owned my car for 2 years now. I've never thought that I saw someone in my car passing, sitting in it, driving, nothing. I've never saw this. So I kind of knew. But I was like, whatever, I'm not going to say anything. And then as Brielle like pulls up to my car, she's like, yeah, did you see something in there? I was like, why? She's like, I thought I saw someone sitting in your passenger seat. I'm like, great. I saw the same thing. So something is sitting in my passenger seat then, because there's no way we both just saw like the same random thing. We park the car and then we get out to start saging. And what's important to note is the sage, when Brielle picked me up in her car, it kind of died out. So it had just been lit and like crazy the whole drive home. And then it finally died down by the time I sat in her car. And then we were kind of struggling to get it to light again to sage my car. And we finally got it to work. And then she's saging my car, did it like freaking 3 times just to be safe. And then as soon as she stepped out of my car, it just like started smoking profusely and like burning, and then burnt the last like bit of it to the point where like it burnt her hands. Like she has scars on her hands from it burning all the way down her hands like that, like so quickly. And so you're not supposed to do this, but she had no choice but like to drop it in the street and stomp it out so that we didn't start a fire. But we finally finished and we went home. And then that should be where it ends, but Bailey needed to take my car somewhere that night. So he walked down, got my car, drove it to like basketball or something, and then he didn't want to park it down the street because he was being a butthead that day. So he parked in front of the house and he was like, can you guys go repark it? And I was like, fine. So me and Brielle went, we reparked my car. We wanted to kind of see if it had like worked anyways. I didn't see an issue with my car on that drive home. We parked it, no biggie. And then we get out, and as we're like about to start walking, I thought that I saw someone like up the street and like next to a car. And it was really weird because like I didn't see any cars pull up. There was no one that had just left their house. I didn't see anyone walking when we were driving there. So I was like, that's weird. Where did this person come from? But again, I didn't say anything. And then Brielle goes, Haley, I think I just saw someone down the street. I was like, oh, great. Okay. Well, I just saw the same thing. And so she's like, we have to check it out. And I'm like, obviously. And it looked just like the shadow of a man. So we walk up the street very quickly. It's only like 4 cars down. It's not that bad. It's right under their street light. And we look and there's no one around. You don't hear any footsteps around, no doors open, no car doors open. No one walked into their house. No one moved. But all of a sudden, like there was no guy up there. I don't know what happened, but that just looked like the shadow man that I saw in my car. But we kind of just shrugged it off again and then just like really quickly walked home. Her hand was all messed up from it. We smelled like sage. We were like, whatever. It's gone. It's gone from my car. It's gone from her house. We should be all good now. That's what we thought. We were not correct. And then from here, things in the house just got so freaking crazy. Just like that, it just boom. I think that I took the shadow man and Carrie's little girl home with me instead of at her house because I saged. So I think that they followed me, and from there things just got really insane in our house, and like it was some of like the top scariest things I've ever dealt with. So I'm gonna go over that in my next video. For now, thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying my Halloween series so far. Next week, I'm gonna be posting part 2 of this video, kind of going into like the insane, like we were seeing ghosts in the house, things were being thrown, like doors closed, things moved, like the whole shebang. So that's gonna be up next week. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.